Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai. This is Yehuda Levin. Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai. This is Yehuda Levin. The program is Levin at 11, heard each and every Thursday evening, Leil Shishi, between 11 and midnight. I'm your host, Yehuda Halevi Levin, and this is our Tuba of 5779 program. It's a special program, and therefore, after beginning with a shir that I said for Hidabrut English Radio back when it was on the air in the summer of 16 Lemisparim, you could find that on the internet on 5 Dakot of Torah. The last few weeks I've been putting on Divrei Torah. It should be a schus for Fushalema, for Avram ben Chayrezel, Masha bas Matal, Yehuda ben Masha, Seich Shai Chole Yisrael. And the schus of Talmud Torah, the Rabbim, is something that I can certainly use. You can find these last few shiurim and maybe one more under 5 Dakot of Torah. There are many Rabbanim who give shiurim, and you could search me out, Inspired Yiddishkeit, Power Davening. You'll find these 5 or 6 shiurim. And please, if you appreciate them, please spread the word. Furthermore, you also heard before I'm coming on, which is the last third of the program, I also put on a beautiful little piece from Dov Shurin from many, many years ago when he hosted Shlomo Kabach on Har Tzion, and he told a beautiful story and gave some insight into Nachmu Ami and sang Nachmu Ami. I hope you enjoyed that as well. After that, I played a song for my son Betzalel, very talented young man, Betzalel Levin, who goes under the name on the video of this song, Be Lovin', a new Bar Yochai song. It was put out literally on the eve of Lag BaOmer and did not get the publicity that it should have gotten. In other words, this is really a fantastic song, so I wanted to put it out, L'Kovet Tu B'Av. For those who want, Betzalel Levin, my son's available for bookings for Kumsitzen. He does chuppahs and all kinds of simchas, and he could be reached at 347-733-9410. If I remember, maybe I'll give that number a little bit later. In addition to that, since we're having a special musical edition, L'Kovet Tu B'Av, in the aftermath of the nadir, of the depths of Mimamakim, of the 3 weeks where we spoke so much and we focused on the Churban, and now we rebuild ourselves up. And one of the ways to lift ourselves up, of course, is with the Shar HaNagina, and therefore I've stepped out of character for this program, and I'm sharing with you a lot of musical stuff, including a song that I did, that I put on the YouTube. You can find it in Rabbi Levin's Rosh Hashanah song, or Rosh Hashanah's message. The song in Hebrew and English, it was just not only for Yidden, it's also for Gentiles. And I took the liberty of putting up that niggin as well, and I hope you enjoy it. Please spread the word about our radio program. This is done with Mesiras Nefesh. It's costing me blood, Pashat, and Daman, the Chazal say, Tarti Mashmalahu. Daman means in Aramaic, in Hebrew it means blood, in Aramaic it means money. And funding this program each and every week is something which takes a lot of koiches out of me. And I invite you once again to be shutfim, to be nedel schar keneged kulam for the Torah, the hashkafa of this program, by going to the Chesed Fund on the internet, and we are fund number 8055, I believe. It's called Kiddush Hashem Morality Fund, and whatever donation you could possibly make would be greatly appreciated. Last week in our program, but I had an interview, and I'm going to continue with that interview, but not this week. So last week, I was about to read you a very important article from the Jewish press that, once again, I want to emphasize. The Jewish press is less than perfect, but it's the only one that's cataloging and communicating to us about the decline of the culture and how it affects the Jewish community. So in the August 9th issue of the Jewish Press, on page 66, there's an article called New York City Issues New Gender Guidelines in their dispatch from the Culture Front. Here are some of the excerpts. Every student is entitled to be addressed by the name and pronoun that correspond to the student's gender identity that they assert at school. Schoolmates are not required to obtain parental consent or court-ordered name and or gender change before being addressed by the name and pronoun that they choose. Schools have a unique and powerful opportunity to educate the entire school community on gender diversity and to support transgender and gender expression expansive students. Schools should proactively support gender diversity at their school. Do you understand, Rabbi Say, what this means in plain English? They are subverting the role of parents, of normalcy, and they're encouraging in every possible way that confused young children, students, should advance any feelings they have of being not their gender, and that they should be encouraged by the entire education establishment to thwart the will of their parents. Listen carefully, this is very important, because it's a kal v'chomer, a priori. If they can do this to the secular Gentile community, do you understand that they can crush the Orthodox community that's a minority of a minority, like a little morishka, like a little mosquito? Here's some more. Generally, a student must be permitted to participate in phys ed, physical education, intramural sports, and competitive athletic activities and contact sports in accordance with the student's gender identity by asserted at school. I'm a girl, I could run in the girls' track meet. Who knows, they can go into the same locker rooms and showers, very waste. I'm telling you, this is Sodom to the nth degree. Transgender and gender expansive students must be provided access to facilities, restroom, locker rooms, or changing rooms consistent with their gender identity asserted at school. A transgender or gender expansive student may not be required to use a single gender facility or facility that conflicts with the student's gender identity asserted at school. That seems to be saying that they can go into the women's lockers and the women's bathrooms. You can't say, here's a private shower for you. Rabbi say, this is Sodom. This is an ultimate klala. Schools should review policies, rules, and practices and eliminate any that do not serve a clear pedagogic purpose. Examples that may include such practices: gender-based graduations, gowns, lines, and attires for yearbook pictures. Everything has to be tzamished. Curriculum provides an opportunity for the student to learn about the experience of others. In other words, brainwash the student about transgenderism. Schools may not develop gender-specific dress codes, require only girls to wear skirts. Dress codes must be written, enforced, and applied equally to all students, regardless of gender, must be free of gender stereotypes. It would seem that a guy can probably walk in with a dress, and you can't tell me anything about whether I could wear a dress. The DOE prohibits gender segregation for health classes, including for classes or portions of these classes that deal primarily with human sexuality. In other words, anti-tznius, puberty education, and sexuality education. Lessons must be designed to be inclusive and affirming of all genders, gender identities, and sexual orientations. And they use gender-inclusive language throughout. Brainwashing of the nth degree and breaking down all gidrei tznius. There aren't frum Yidden in public school. There are frum Yidden in public school. Nechmas Yisrael fights to take them out. There are some people who send their kids to public school because they don't have money or they're frustrated about the amount of tuition. And even if they're not frum, they're not Achinu B'nai Yisrael who are going there. And even the Gentiles, we are seeing them raise a generation of students that are going to be already it's bad. Could you imagine when these students become into their mid-20s and 30s and they run for political office? It's going to be shrecklich. We're going to be imprisoned, Rabbi say. I'm not exaggerating. We're going to be imprisoned for being moise nefesh on these things, if anybody will be moise nefesh. If schools offer partner activities such as dancing, they must not create a gender-specific role. Schools should use lead and follow versus male and female to identify roles. The Torah opinion on these topics is crystal clear, but even non-believers would find many of these above directives highly troublesome. Indeed, the more the far left targets children, the more widespread support we can garner or push back against such directives. And push back we must. The innocence of hundreds of thousands of children are at stake. So that was the article in the Jewish press. Now I want to tell you that USA Today had an article recently that a father wrote in Illinois that his 14-year-old daughter was covering herself with people who believed that they're men. She was autistic. The school psychologist said that she had mental problems, emotional problems, but he wouldn't say that in the report because he would run afoul of the Illinois laws, the kind of laws that the 16-year Aguda lobbyist and superhero Mark Galish, otherwise known as Kalish, the walking Chillul Hashem, who voted that they have to brainwash children by teaching them the history of Gayachs in every class throughout public school. You understand? I want to tell you again and again, it's coming straight from us. And this father was writing how he's losing control, he lost control of his own child, and the school psychologist and the schools in Illinois would do everything to encourage her whatever you want to call this, gender dysphoria, or whatever the word is, for people who think that they have feelings that they're part of the opposite gender. Rabbi say it's a kal v'chomer. If they do this to us, what will they do? If they do this to them, what will they do to us, kal v'chomer? So this brings us to the next stage here. Chaim Deutsch did a wonderful thing, right? For the last couple of years, he got separate swimming. Since when does a society and a government that supports so much mixing the genders, why in the world would New York, with such liberal garbage that I just read you, why would they possibly be masking to separate gender segregated swimming? You hear? You hear the question? It's a gewaltige question. They hold that this is bigotry, this is discrimination, this is what we're trying to uproot. Why should they do it? And the ones who did it were Human Rights Committee. The Human Rights Committee of the City of New York leads in all the schmutz and the shigassen. Why would they agree? So the Jewish press had an article 2 weeks ago congratulating Chaim Deutsch on accomplishing this for the second year. And the reporter, Gilbert Clapper, who might have to take an eyesight test, he used a pictorial that accompanied the article, a small print, but 1 or 2 pages of the actual order from the Human Rights Commission mandating or allowing this. Now, if you read the simple order, you would understand why they did it. Clapper did not bother to put that into the article. The question is, did Chaim Deutsch know? Is he a useful idiot, chas v'sholem, of the pro-Hashkasa crowd? Or did he decide to machzach nish wissentik, and he showed stupidity, or his taka doesn't know? Whatever it is, it doesn't reflect nicely on Chaim Deutsch. So let me read you an article in this week's Jewish Press dated Friday, August 16th, page 71. Separate swimming house, a blessing? 2 weeks ago, the Jewish Press published a New York City document responding to a request for separate swimming hours by Councilman Chaim Deutsch. This document granted the necessary permissions, but also stated, in granting this limited exemption, the Commission notes, Human Rights Commission, that all members of the public must be granted full and unconstrained access to the event as is consistent with their gender identity, including people who identify as non-binary, gender non-conforming, transgender, or cisgender, among others. I don't even know what cisgender means. While separate swimming hours at public beaches are great, Rav Baruch Ber Leibowitz begged Mayor Jimmy Walker for them when he visited New York City in the 1930s, and Jimmy Walker said, "What can I do for you, Rabbi?" He said, "Give separate swimming," because he knew that a lot of Yidden were being michshol. So he didn't say, "Give money, help me get money for my poor, starving yeshiva students," which many people in Moises would have done today, Geld über alles, but he prioritized tznius, kedusha v'tznius. Nevertheless, so continues the writer, under no circumstances can we agree to an arrangement in which a biological man can swim with women or a biological woman with men. I would argue that the city actually only agreed to separate beach hours because getting the Jewish community to acquiesce to transgenders' preferences was infinitely more important to it and harmful to the Jewish community than insisting on mixed swimming. You understand? The city was willing to sacrifice, in this one case, mixed swimming, albeit to get the Orthodox Jews to turn the other cheek through their representatives, through their councilmen, through the councilmen and they themselves said nobody does anything. This is a tremendous Chil Hashem, this is a tremendous kitrig. Lauren Elephant, I wonder if she's Jewish, who approved Chaim Deutsch's request for separate hours, is now the deputy director of a worldwide abortion organization, and a quick glance at her Twitter page reveals that she also supports the BDS boycott. There's no doubt that someone like her was not trying to do favors for our community. She was only trying to get us to agree publicly to accept transgenders. In other words, Miss Elephant was playing chess, while Councilman Deutsch was playing checkers. Maybe he was playing spin the dreidel. Rabbi Sai, this is what's going on. Let me give you a drop in the final minutes. Let me give you a drop more information. Satma had one in Williamsburg like this, and 2 years ago, a woman made a complaint that appeared in some of the Jewish hotlines that a African-American man, 6'4", who identified as a woman, was coming down to swim. So it didn't even start with Chaim Deutsch. It started with the Satmar community in Williamsburg. I don't know if they still have swimming or not, but the price is much too hard to pay. And this is just another example of Machrivayach u'mehasayach v'me'ayach yetzeyu. Okay, at the same time, in Florida, they just approved a 24-hour waiting period. Even in the limited cases that they allow abortion, they make the woman wait an additional 24 hours that maybe she could be persuaded not to. In Arkansas, there are very, very strict laws. In Tennessee, they're considering to virtually cannot outlaw abortion. So at the very same time they're doing this, this is what we're doing. By the way, you understand what's going on. By the way, a 14-year-old girl, Sophie, who has 1 million followers, was banned from YouTube. 1 million followers, a 14-year-old girl, for speaking mamish such words of wisdom. And she spoke out against this whole Mishkav Zohar and transgender thing, so they banished her from YouTube. But this is also to wake us up. Look what a 14-year-old girl does. What are our people doing? What are our Askalim doing? They're still playing footsie. By the way, one comment on this Jeffrey Epstein novel. Do you get a more high-profile Jewish name coming out of New York than Epstein, who has a mezuzah had mezuzahs on his doors, and he's such a manovel? Do you think that there are people throughout the United States who are not saying Jews, New York, this, that? Wake up, Rabbi Sai. Epstein, in part, might be because we, like Rav Yisrael Salanta said, if we don't learn Torah and Kovna, then Machal was Shabbos in Paris. What breeds in Epstein? This is hashkafa, deep hashkafa. Think about it, Rabbi Sai. Nachmu, Nachmu, Amni. We've got to wake up. Again, those who might be interested in booking my son for a Simcha B'Tzal 11, 347-733-9410 until we meet again. A guten Tamid, and where we hear Besuris Toivus.